There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, if you want.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
Hello and welcome to episode 40 of the Power Chord Hour. That is right, we are no longer in our dirty 30s. I don't know what clever thing you say when you're in your 40s, but we're getting ready for that midlife crisis here, right here on the Power Chord Hour podcast, and I hope you are doing so well out there. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you, 40 episodes strong, and part of me can't believe it, but then at the same time, the radio show last week, or actually this week, will be episode 211, and it was our 210th episode last week, so it's like, I have these kind of like parallel things going where like I hit these little milestones of the radio show where I go like, holy shit. Like, I mean, next February will be the 5th anniversary of our first episode. So, I mean, we've been doing the radio show now almost 5 years. So, I mean, like that's blowing my mind. And then I'm doing the podcast and I start looking and I'm like, oh, you know, we're at 30, then we're at 40. And, you know, I mean, look, in 10 episodes, we'll be at 50. And, you know, I don't know, it's insane. But I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy that we're 40 episodes in and anyone is listening to this. And you know what? First and foremost, actually, I wanted to give a big shout out, and I cannot remember. I know we went on a few different podcast directories there, so I do not remember all the names. But a big shout out to anyone listening to this in India right now. The last few weeks, we got added to some podcast directories and apps in India. And like I've just been watching really in the last 2 weeks, India is now our third most listened, like we are most downloaded. Our third most downloaded country is in India. And I mean, you guys beat out Canada, you beat out France, Australia. Like we have some other ones too, but like the big like maybe 5 or 6 countries that have downloaded the show most. Because we have some other ones where like there's a few countries where we have maybe like 5 downloads. You know, and like little things like here and there, but like of sizable amounts of downloads, we probably have like 5 or 6 countries. And the last 2 weeks that we've been available in India, I'm not kidding. I mean, it's just been shooting up, and it's really cool too because people are going back and like listening to old episodes, and it's funny to call them old episodes because really, I mean, the oldest episode would be the very first one, and that's not even a year old yet. So you know, I mean, old within reason, I guess, but. You know, it's very cool to see. So, I mean, honestly, shout out to anyone listening to this in India. I mean, that is so awesome. It blows my mind to, you know, just to think that. I remember way back in the day with a podcast, like I'm talking to like 2006, 2007, I had one with my friend. And, I mean, we were like in middle school. So, I mean, this was very, very long ago. But, and I do not, off the top of my head, I don't remember the countries. But my buddy was the one who did all I didn't know anything about hosting these or doing anything like that. So he did like the analytic, or not even the analytics, but like hosting it, putting it up, figuring out how you get a podcast out basically. And I do remember him telling me though, like when like there'd be a couple different countries that would download our episodes. And that just always blew my mind. I mean, I get a kick out of looking, and obviously anyone listening from anywhere, I mean, you know, whether it's here in the United States or anywhere else, I mean, I think it's amazing and it's so cool, but I've always gotten a kick out of that, you know, to know that people are listening in other places. And I know on WRFA that we, on the radio station that we do the radio show on, I used to produce the Swedish Hour, it's called, and it's like the longest running show on here. They still do it. And it's funny, actually, I'm recording this in the WRFA studios, and I just as I walked in, there's a sign-in sheet just with COVID and everything. They want to kind of keep track of you know, everyone coming in and out. And I saw that the host Yed, that she signed in, that she was here a few days ago, and that just made me so happy that she's still doing it like 10 or 11 years later now. I mean, I produced that from 2009 to 2011. I had an internship here while I was in high school. But anyways, I always got a kick out of that because, you know, that got listened to in Sweden. Like we had a Swedish listenership that was listening from another country, you know, streaming the radio show. And that just always was like, it just always blew my mind. And it's just, you know, it's still now, you know, all these years later, like anytime you see it kind of get that reach, I always get a kick out of that. Same with social media. I've sent a couple like stickers and pics and stuff other countries, and I always get a kick out of that. We're out of stickers, but I mean, if you're listening from India, I still have some Power Chord, and really this is for anyone listening anywhere, but once again, shout out to anyone listening to this in India. And I gotta say, like, as of right now, me recording this, and who knows, it may change. I'm recording this Saturday night, comes out Monday. I mean, maybe my Monday it will change, but third most downloaded country, but they're just beating the UK by like I'm like 10 or 15 downloads. So I mean, by the time this comes out, there's a good chance that India is our second most downloaded country. So I mean, once again, cannot thank you enough. If you're listening to this over there, thank you so much. It is so it just blows my mind. It's so rad that you have found this, and I hope you enjoy it. I mean, I don't know. I hope I represent the United States well. Not everyone has a potty mouth like me, but not everyone's as smart as me though either, or has this great taste of music. So you've come to the right place. But thank you so much for checking out. But like I was saying, if you're listening over there, but really if you're listening from anywhere, you're just listening to this. I don't have Power Chord Hour stickers anymore. I got to order more, because I actually keep getting emailed and stuff for them. People still see the posts on our social media and hit me up, and I'm just like, hey, sorry, like I don't have them anymore. But I still have some guitar picks, so if you want to hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. I will gladly mail you some, no matter where you're at in the world. I do have T-shirts, but I have mailed one or two outside of the U.S., and it is just so expensive, I got to be honest, that I cannot offer those to people out of the U.S. because I sent one out, and dude was very rad. Sent a glowing review, such a nice review, and I mean I gladly sent it out, but I sent it somewhere in the UK, and it was like $20 to ship it. So that's just kind of my thing. You know what I mean? I'd love to be able to send stuff to people listening anywhere. But picks I can still send. I can send you an envelope of guitar picks and a little thank you note, and it'll cost me like $1. Like I can totally do that. But if you want one of those T-shirts though, and you're in the U.S., don't forget, you can rate and review the show on iTunes, and send me a screenshot of it, powerchordhour@gmail.com, or you can send it to one of our social media, wherever. Just get it to me. Just get a screenshot to me. And that you left a review. I don't care what it is, glowing, not glowing, whatever it is, and send me that screenshot, and I'll send you a shirt. And I would love to do that. I still got a handful of them left, and they look very cool. Second design we've ever had. We had another one last year, and I think this one looks even cooler. Same design that we've had, but just looks really, really cool. And They're I mean, it's not an exact copy, but I have seen, I'm not even going to say the name. I don't know the name. So like, I don't know. I'm not trying to start shit. I guess I am in a way, but not really. Just kind of an observation, if you will. But there is like I guess podcast network or something I see just started. And look at like our logo. If you've seen it, it's not like intricate or anything like that by any means, but I have seen this logo for this new one, and it's basically like ours, just flipped around, but it looks weird because it looks like our design if you were looking at it in a mirror. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit odd, but I mean at the same time, I mean I don't know. It's just a thing that I've seen and I'd like to bring up, but once again, it's not really. I guess it's a kind of a neutral comment. It just kind of looks odd when you see it and you go like, that looks a lot like my logo, just flipped around. But and that's the other thing. If you maybe you like that podcast network more than us, rate and review my podcast. I'll give you this shirt, and if you can somehow figure out how to reverse that image around, then there you go. It doesn't even have to be a Power Chord Hour shirt anymore. But so if you have not guessed, I mean, we're almost 10 minutes in. If you have not guessed, we don't have a guest. It is just me and you for this episode. And actually, I did have one, and I messed it up. That happens from time to time. It's not always on the guest. Sometimes you have mishaps with them. People forget to call in. Things happen. But this was totally my fuck up. Actually, this week we were supposed to be talking to, and I wanted him back on. The last time I was supposed to have him on was 2018. So I've wanted him back on for a while. And that was the last time I was going to have him on. Last time I've had him on was 2016. But Steve Neurotic of the band Shower with Goats I was going to have him on tonight or interview him tonight around the time that I'm recording this, and then it'll be coming out Monday. But I told him, hey, yeah, let's do this interview. I'm like, he gave me a time, and I'm like, that would totally work 100%. And in my mind, I'm like, it would. It was a perfect time. I was all set for it. And then like an hour or two passed, and all of a sudden it hit me in my head. I'm like, I have a birthday party to go to. So I messed that up. Totally my fault. I fucked it up big time. But I didn't want to leave you guys hanging because also, if you did notice, no new podcast last week. And that one was it was a little bit out of laziness, I guess. I would say some laziness. And also, I was out kayaking. So that was the other thing. I had no guest, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to do for the episode for the week. And then it got to the end of the week, and my uncle's like, you want to go kayaking? And I'm like, that sounds fun. So I did that instead of doing the podcast. If you didn't notice, there wasn't one last week. But hey, these bad boys are free. What are you going to do? But I had a great time. Fall is my favorite season. Because like I like summer, but I like the season where I get beautiful foliage on the trees, and it's still nice enough where you can go outside, but it's not so ungodly hot and humid. It's like the perfect time in my opinion. You know, maybe towards the end it gets a little like when it's really transitioning into a winter, and it gets really, you know, like the wind starts to like hurt your face because it's getting like that cold. That part I don't love, but like the September October part and like early part of November, like I love the fall. And yeah, I did a little kayaking up on Candace Lake, kind of near Rochester, New York, and the foliage up there just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And went around Hemlock Lake and those places, and it was just a gorgeous day, nice little day trip. And I've been up there before, but never got to kayak it. And it's funny, I really got back into kayaking this summer. I kayaked once. And I guess that's the other thing. It's my dumbass taking one experience from years ago going, well, I didn't really care for it, and then just assuming that I just didn't really like it, where in actuality, I mean, I didn't have a terrible time the first time I did it, but I just done it years ago because I thought I'd really like it, and I think I hyped it up so much in my head that when I went and did it, it wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be, so I just kind of wrote it off. But then this summer, I did a decent amount of kayaking, and I'm like, oh, like, damn, I think I want a kayak again. I think I might have to buy one. I've been using other people's every time, but enough where I'm like, oh, okay, I think it's time. You know, I think one day when, you know, hopefully this podcast starts making me some jet ski money. That's what we really want. You know, like I said earlier, this shit's free right now, but you just wait. We're gonna get somewhere in here, and you all are gonna have to help me get that jet ski money because I would love me a jet ski as well, a kayak and a jet ski. I don't need a flashy boat. I don't need anything. I guess those are really like shitty guest boats. They're not even boats, but I mean like they're not even like, no one really wants to sit on the back of a jet ski. You're going to eat shit if the person driving it takes a turn too fast. And I mean a kayak is definitely not a very comfortable thing for two people. But I don't know. I like things like that where you can get a couple people, you can all get in, you know, either on your jet ski or your kayak and just go down, you know, go places you really can't go with a boat. I'm kind of into that. And including when I was in Minnesota, I really did, you know, a land of 10,000 lakes and even more actually, because whatever the criteria is for lakes, like there's so many just like huge ponds, which you would probably call a lake anyways, that you see just driving around Minnesota that don't even count for those 10,000 lakes. So, I mean, there's probably, and I truly believe that too. Well, I mean, I guess more than 10,000 bodies of water, if you want to be technical, if you will. But yeah, that's what I was doing last week. Instead of podcasting, I was having fun on the water. And I want to enjoy that too. September was so cold around where I live. And actually October, like this last week or so, we had some decent weather. And I wanted to go take advantage of that. So that's what I was doing. I don't know. You got to have that balance. I like hanging out in studios and doing indoor things, but I'm also somebody, I like that in between. I'm not a person who wants to live in the country. I like to live in a city. I like to live in a busy place, but at the same time, I also like that other side of just solitude in the forest, nobody around, quiet, you know, I like cities, but I don't like city parks. I'd rather go in the middle of nowhere or like country woods and stuff like that. But I kind of like that in between. You gotta have a little bit of both in your life. Got to have a nice balance there, and that's what I did. But I'm back with you. I'm sure we'll have Steve on. I mean, really, I'm just waiting to hear back from him. Whenever he can do it. So I mean, maybe even next week we'll have him on, and I would love to have him on. He's a great dude, and actually, very first interview on the Power Chord Hour. That's the other reason why I would really love to have him back on. Besides he's just a good dude, and I like his music. But very first interview back in November of 2016. I remember I hit him up. I don't think it wasn't exactly my 24th birthday, so I was still 23. It was like a few days before my 24th birthday, I remember. Maybe we were having like a birthday party for me or something, and I knew him a little bit just on Twitter. I mean, just talking to him from the band. I bought some rare stuff from him a few times. I think it's Caught Inside. I don't know if you know who Caught Inside is. If you do, email me so I can send you some punk cred. Like, I'll just mail you some punk cred in the mail. I guess that's how you mail something, but like, I'll mail you some punk cred if you know who Caught Inside is, the Florida punk band. And I bought a test pressing from him from a 45 they did. I can't remember the rest. I got a couple other things. One or two of them had to do a Shower with Goats, but also were just a few other things from like obscure, like, and you've heard this podcast. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. You know that I love like those bands that you have to like search and hunt for, who are like obscure and pre-internet days, like pre-social media. Like I love scouring stuff for that. And he had some really cool stuff I bought years ago. But, I just talked to him on and off a little bit online and whatnot. But I remember at the time he started his not-for-profit records, which was one of the reasons he was going to come on. And I won't say too much because Not was going to come on. He'll definitely be back on. But he was just starting that label then, and it's just a really cool thing. You should go check this out because if you're not familiar with him too, go get familiar before our interview. And I feel like you'd enjoy it that much more if you knew who he was. But Not-for-profit records, he does these releases, and if you can tell by the name, if the name doesn't give it away, he does it not-for-profit, and the proceeds go to different charities for everything. So his very first release, when I interviewed him, he did a split, Steve and the Neurotics, which is him and a couple other people I believe he had working on it. Him and then kind of whoever's around, I believe he kind of does, but it's mostly his project. And he did a split with him and Krista Makes of Less Than Jake. They both did a song, and the proceeds went. Chris picked a place, and then he picked a place. Chris picked, I believe, might have been a hospice, I think, in Florida that his grandmother was at the end of her life. And I think also Money went to Alzheimer's research and cancer research, I want to say. And you can find this interview on our YouTube page. It is like at the way bottom. It's like the third video on there. Because once again, this is our first, or my very first interview. But, it really, really cool. He does stuff from time to time. And he just did something, put out a Shower of Goats record that they recorded over a decade ago, but just got released this month on the label. And I'm not entirely sure where all the money's going to. They go to a couple different places for this one too, but always to a good cause. So, I was going to have him on, talk about that, find out where the proceeds are going, and all that good stuff. But yeah, so he was the first one. I messaged him because I knew that he was putting that out, and I'm like, hey man, the radio show at that point, I started it in February 2016, and I hit him up, and he was on November 2016. So this was months. This was like 10 months into the show. So, which has, see, those are the things that blow my mind. Like, as I was saying earlier, like, we're getting up to that 5th anniversary of the radio show, and I'm looking back at our first interview, and we're 10 months in. Like, we weren't even at our year yet, We're just inching there. And actually, I think I'm doing the math in my head. I'm shitty at math. If you haven't been able to tell, listening to the show, if you ever hear me on here doing math, you probably notice I kind of slow down for a second, and I probably don't even get the right number then. But roughly 10 months in, and probably a little less there actually. But yeah, he was cool. He was nice enough to come on, be my very first guest. And it's funny, I'd not listened to that one in a while. I had heard it since we'd record it. It's not like something that I'd never heard since I interviewed him, but it had been quite a while. And I just listened to this yesterday, as in Friday night, because I'm recording this Saturday night. And me and Steve were talking. He was going to come on, but we didn't solidify the time until yesterday. So I was like, okay, you're coming on tomorrow. And that's when I fucked it up and went, oh, wait, I have a birthday party. But, after we're like, okay, he's coming on tomorrow, I went back and I was going to listen to more of it. I did not listen to very much of it, to be honest. But just to go back through, like even though it was an old interview and like I wanted to kind of do it fresh and, for people, like I said, who don't know him, we'd still go over things again. But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't like asking him the same exact questions I asked him 4 years ago, basically. So I listened back a little and oof, it is hard to listen to that. I got to say, like I've the last few years, like I don't mind hearing, like I can kind of hear myself. Not that I sit around and listen to like I don't want to listen to this. I don't sit around listening to these. I don't think most people do. If people sit around and listen to their own podcasts, they're fucking sociopaths. That's you can quote me on that. Like I'm not gonna sit here and listen to myself, regurgitate what I already heard myself say, for an hour and a half. I'm not gonna do that. I can't imagine many people do. But I mean, if I do listen to it, or even if I just listen back, like I'm editing it, like I don't mind. Like I don't mind hearing my voice. Like I used to not like hearing it, and then I listened to that interview, and I'm just like, oh yeah, like I was really, which I was nervous. I mean, obviously, it was my first interview on the show. Really, my first ever like interview, really. And funny enough, I did a text interview with, and by text actually by email. But I with Steve Kravick, who was on the show for the first time this year. But I back in college in 2014 for a communications class, the final was to interview someone in communications, and actually it's funny. That was another one. Is he is another one who I talked to on Twitter for years and had never talked to like on the phone or anything like that. And I just hit him up on there. I'm like, hey dude, like I got to do this thing for school. Like, would you be into it? Like. And then he was like up for it. And he's the sweetest dude too. Like, you want to talk about what a good guy he was. I don't remember who he was on tour with, but like he was touring with someone at that time. Like, I don't know if he was doing PA or what. I don't think he was playing in the band, but like, he was managing or PAing or whatever. And, he took the time to do that. And I know he was busy as hell. And I remember I kept waiting for it because when he sent it, he ended up sending it like, I think a day or two before I had to turn it in. But I mean, and like not to no fault of his own. Once like he was on tour, you know what I mean. But I remember him getting it back to me. Even actually to be even more specific with you, this was back in 2014. Which another funny one actually, because I hit up Steve for our very first interview in 2016, like on the eve or whatever of my 24th birthday, and I remember Steve sent me that the interview like a day or two, because I was coming back from the Antarctica Vespucci. They were Jeff Rosenstock and Chris Farron's band. They were playing in Cleveland at the Grog Shop. That was the first time they ever played Cleveland, and as far as I know, the only time. I mean, they've played like Fest and stuff, but I don't think they've ever done a full tour like that ever again. As far as I know, it's the only tour they ever did. But I remember going to that, and it was a Sunday night, and I was driving back. I had college the next day, pretty early in the morning. I had classes, and at like 1 or 2 in the morning, I think, I was like pumping gas at Sheetz in like outside of Ashtabula, Ohio, and I was checking my phone while pumping gas, which is a terrible thing to do. Don't do that. But there it was at like 1 or 2 in the morning when I was pumping gas. Steve sent it in like right there. It's like I remember I had to go home. And you know what? No, I take that back about having a couple days. That was the thing. It was on a Sunday night. I had to turn it in the next day. So he like sent it to me like 12 hours before that class. So that was the other thing. Like I went to this show and I couldn't just skip classes the next day. Like this was November, so we're getting towards the end. Shit was fairly serious. And I had to hand in. It wasn't like a project yet. Like you handed in the interview, and then you had to like do a presentation or shit like a month later. But I had to hand that in, and I had to like write an intro for it and shit. So like I had to get home at like 3 a.m, write some intro for this, transcribe his email, kind of clean it up in a form so I could put it in, a Word document for my teacher. And it all worked out. I ended up getting like an A or a B on it. And actually the funniest thing too with it was I remember the teacher was like, you can't do email because Steve, because he was touring, it was like kind of hard to do it via phone. The teacher wanted it to either be in person or over, Skype or phone. And just was not easy for Steve to do. So for a while, I was kind of looking for other people, and then I'm like, what? Well, like, fuck it. Like, I have the dude who's like produced and engineered Blink-182 and Less Than Jake and all these bands to interview him for my final project for this communications class. Like, why wouldn't I go with him? Like, who gives a shit? It's on email. So I just went against the teacher. And at first I thought it was going to go against me, but like I said, I got an A or a B on the thing. Like, it was like an 80 something, I believe. So like, it really didn't fuck me. Like, the teacher was kind of like, yeah, you're not allowed to do that. And I kind of went against it. But, well, the other thing, I guess, to be fair as well, I don't think you ever had to like have, like, he didn't make you record the conversations. It was all kind of by by trust. So, you could also just say, hey, I transcribed this because I talked to him on the phone. Like, I don't know that he really had a way of finding out. I guess I was foolish to believe him for a minute, but it's good that I decided to go against him. And that was like the first time I ever actually, I would say, interviewed someone in the sense of, because the interview questions were like it was for a class, but I really did write questions like I would for this show. Like, I asked him about his label, what he's done, like, and it's funny because I was reading them back earlier this year, his, my questions and his answers. And I mean, at this point, they're 6 years old. But, like, we were talking about his own music, and at that point, he was talking about what would become Stephen Bradley, but he's talking about wanting to release a solo record then. And it was so funny that I'm reading that 6 years prior, and then 6 years later, he's on the show, and we're interviewing him for that album, that he finally put out. But, just so funny. I love at this point, because once again, like, I can't believe the show's been around for a couple years now. So like, to have memories like they were like, yeah, that was a couple years ago, or like this happened during this, is absolutely insane. But, Steve was another great guest we definitely got to have back on. But anyways, with both Steves, I all of a sudden it just hit me. I guess, like, as I'm talking about this, it didn't even hit me. I'm talking about two Steves, Steve Neurotic and Steve Kravick. But, and we got to have them both on. Steve Neurotic was who we were supposed to have on tonight. But anyways, he was our very first guest on the show. And, it's just insane to listen back to that. Like, I was just so nervous. I'd done that interview with Steve Kravick, where it was all on email. Like, it wasn't like a phoner. And it was like, and that was the other thing. Like, we talked online, but I'd never talked to him, like, on the phone. Like, verbally, we'd never talked. And, he was such a nice guy because, like, and this was just kind of my perspective 4 years later and listening to it yesterday. Like, I mean, I was just so goddamn nervous. I was just very stiff. Like, there wasn't very much personality in it. Like the thing, I was thinking about this too. Like, I'm happy that me and him talked beforehand, and also, like, I hit him up to come on, so he knew that, like, I wanted him on the show and I liked his music. Because if not, if you listen to it, it's unintentional, but I just think I'm so, like, unemotional, and, like, the way, just because I'm, like, nervous, but I just have this really deadpan way of asking questions, almost sound disinterested. It's just so funny listening back now. So it's like, I got to redeem myself and have him back on, obviously. But, I'm sure we'll get that. I'm sure we'll get that back going. I mean, I'm probably not going to put it in the podcast feed anytime soon, but I mean, it's not like I've deleted it. You can hear this interview. It's like I said, it's one of our first videos on the YouTube page. And, I mean, we talked for like 40 minutes. I mean, he was a good guest and a very interesting guy. Really cool musical career throughout the years. And I mean, if you don't know him, this probably won't come to a surprise to you. I mean, considering, what the topic is for a lot of our episodes. But Shower Goats is a New Jersey punk band. And that's why it's so funny. That was my first ever guest. That's why I always say that. Like, yeah, I wasn't like in the scene. I wasn't even born in New Jersey. And, I missed it. I was like a baby when all that stuff was going on. But I just love it so much that, that had to be my first guest. I just knew that I would have questions for him and things to ask him. And I that was the other thing too. I've been thinking about that as well lately, that I think those are sometimes the best guests. Like, I think those have been some of my best guests on the show. Like, at least for me personally, if I'm done with an interview, the ones that I personally think come out like the greatest are people that, like, I know kind of, but have never talked to, once again, verbally. Like, I have a lot of people who I've had on the show the last few years, and a lot on this podcast just this year, where, we've been buddies on, like, Twitter for years or whatever on social media, and, we talk that way, but we've never heard each other's voices or anything like that. And, Steve Neurotic, I think, was a good one, like I said, for my first interview in that way, where, yeah, I was nervous, but at the same time, it was like I knew things I could ask him. I knew I'd be interested in it. And we did. I mean, it's funny, too, because the interview's only like 40 minutes, but I remember we talked for maybe 3 hours because one of the I guess he would be our he's just a jack of all trades. He's a great dude, but Jason here at WRFA, I felt bad, and I think he was a little annoyed because I remember taking that studio for like 3 hours that day, not realizing that he needed it. And the interview was like 40 minutes long. So I think at some point Jason listened in there, and it was no longer an interview. It was now I was asking Steve if he had an Against All Authority album that he could send me the MP3s of. We started just talking like about obscure old bands, and Steve was like sending me a bunch of MP3s. He's like, have you ever heard the band Quit? You ever heard this? You ever heard that? One thing I would like to do, though, and I had totally forgotten about this until yesterday with that interview, though, because we had talked so long with the show, part of the reason why it's 40 minutes is that, during that time, we're in a time slot on the radio station where like PSAs would play, there'd be an intermission, it would get cut up, and it's like we would be on for an hour, but really we wouldn't have an entire hour. So like I had to fit our interview, an intro, and I, like me talking before and after, and I wanted to play some of his music. So we had to cut a bunch of stuff out, and one of the things I had to cut out, which really bummed me out, but it just, I was trying to keep to the topic, the album he was releasing with Chris, and some different things. But towards the end, we did start talking about like obscure bands from the 90s, from like that New Jersey punk scene. And he had so many. Like he was just like all these ones that he'd played with and ones that he went and saw. And I'd totally forgotten, like we had to cut out so much of that just from time restraints. And we weren't, obviously weren't doing the podcast 4 years ago. And, so I don't know. I guess it's conflicting because, like I said, part of me doesn't like listening back to it because, like, I just feel like I'm so frigid and, like, I don't know if frigid's the right word. I'm emotionless, it sounds like. Like, there's no emotion. I ask everything very deadpan and stuff. I was just because I'm nervous. Like, once again, like, I asked him on. I'm a fan of his music. Like, it's not like I'm disinterested in what we're talking about. But, I don't know. There's that. But at the same time, I also think he had such great things to say and had some really interesting things to talk about that I don't know, maybe one day the whole thing coming out would be cool. But I'd like to have him on anyways. Like that one was neat too because he had some good Les and Jake stories as well. Because like I said, he did that split with Kristen Makes. And Shower with Goats played, I think, their first ever show with Les and Jake at Steve's parents' house. That's in the interview. You got to go back and listen to the story because I can't remember the entire thing. But, he talks about, like, the early days. We're talking, like, Les and Jake was probably a band for, like, I don't even think Pezcore was out yet because I think that was part of the thing that he talked about was, like, they didn't even have an album out yet. They had a couple, like, 7 inches out. If you know anything about Les and Jake, they put out all, talk about a band that's just put out all these random releases through the years and splits and, just different things like that. And, that it was kind of during that time. It was like pre-Pezcore, just, a couple random things out there. So, we're talking really early days. And, that was left in the interview. Like, that stuff you can go hear on YouTube. But, he has so much cool stuff to talk about. So I definitely got to have him back on. And, I'm sure we'll rehash some of that. Because, once again, I just feel like at this point, I'm more comfortable interviewing people. I've since now talked to probably 30 or 40. I've probably had at least 40 more interviews since I've talked to him. So, I think at this point I'm a little better at it and, would love to have him back on. And, and really that's the thing is probably that after interview fodder was probably a lot more relaxed. Like when I wasn't on air with him, like I was probably way more chill. Like when we were just talking about, Against All Authority and whatnot. And shout out to him. I'm trying to remember the name. It's a rare one. It's like Pre-Hopeless Records. I can't remember this is the name, and I like Walking Revolutions on it, which is that was the one I heard off, and then I wanted the rest of the album, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And shout out to him for sending me the MP3s. That I think it's Destroy What Destroys You. I might be fucking up the title, but I know it's something along that lines, and just so good. Kind of that like Suicide Machines kind of side of ska, the aggressive side. You know what I mean? Like not the happy-go-lucky side, the like fuck you side. But some good stuff in there. I'm kind of side note too. I just stoked about it, and we'll probably play it on here because I'll probably play the new song. But I did just get a cool little liner from Roger from Less Than Jake. If you don't know what a liner is, if you're listening to a radio show or a podcast, if you will, as well, and we have mine here before, but like, hey, this is so and so, and you're listening to insert radio station or podcast name here. He just sent us one that he did and did a little shout out, and it's also for the new Less Than Jake song for their upcoming record. And I'm going to be playing that. I'm playing it on the radio show here this week, and I will probably be playing it on the September rundown here as well. And I'll just play that in between. I mean, it's like 10 seconds long, but things like that, it's still. Those are the reasons to do this. Like that, like shit like that is like why I do the podcast. Because it's like Roger, I play a Ernie Ball Stingray bass, and like Mike Herrera and Roger are the like two reasons I play them. Like there's other artists, but those were the two that at that time I'm like, that's the tone. Like that's what I want. Like those basses look cool. I saw them play them live. They always look so fucking cool. Both great bass players, including, Roger's playing fucking like lead bass in Less Than Jake. It's insane. It kind of goes back like what me and Kyle were talking about last week on the Green Day episode, talking about Insomniac. What I brought up was like, I think one of the things that people don't realize is like all these insane things, like Mike Dirnt kind of does that in Green Day, and he's playing like lead bass and stuff. And one of the reasons he can do that is because there's not a wall of guitars. You know what I mean? Like there's just one. Like he's just like Roger's only playing with Chris, who, has normally a pretty clean guitar tone anyway. They're playing ska. He's not really, he might have a little distortion when they're playing like choruses and stuff, kind of like double the sound, make it a little louder. But, he has a lot more to play with in there. And, it's insane when you look at like what Roger plays while he's singing. Like, it's just nuts. I mean, he's one of the greatest punk rock, really just one of the best like bass players in music. Like he's really amazing. But I mean, when you want to talk about like punk ska, like that whole, you know what I'm talking about, the whole like genre and that kind of music, one of the best. I mean, it's just insane what he's doing. But to have him just do a little shout out and like, hey, Roger from Less Than Jake, you're listening to Power Chord Hour and stuff. And I'm not doing it justice. He really. He had a great too, like the way he says the Power Chord Hour too. He's like I don't know, he like builds up to it, gives it this really great like I don't know, it sounds awesome. You'll hear it on here, but I just thought that was really cool. I got a kick out of that he did it. I got some other new ones too. He did that. Actually, Steve I think is going to send one from Steve Neurotic. We do have one from Stephen Bradley, Steve Kravick. We do have one from him. But, and Chelsea from Stress Dolls, she sent us one. And, I've been getting some new ones. I had some older ones, and as bands start to break up or, like, people leave bands and shit, like, you can't use all the old ones anymore. So, I guess I could, but I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it's weird. Like, I don't know if people want that. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody's like, hey, this is so-and-so from this band, and it's like, well, they're not in the band anymore, so it's like I just kind of feel weird, so I don't play those anymore. But I've gotten some fresh liners, and I'm sure that's what you care about. You're like, we need fresh liners on here. I can't do with these old ones, And what I cannot do with, you know this, I'm a huge Replacements fan. If you listen to this show, you know that. And I've been waiting for that Pleased to Meet Me box set. It's my favorite Replacements record. It's one of my favorite records of all time. I don't know. I've never thought too hard on that like Deserted Island record thing. Like when people ask you that, but I mean, if you're gonna ask me like 3 records that ran on Deserted Island, I mean, Pleased to Meet Me has to be in there. It has to be in there, And it's funny too. I love Slim and I love Bob Stinson, and Bob Stinson in particular is like one of my all-time favorite guitar players. But as far as Replacements go, my favorite record is the one that neither him nor Slim play on. Them as a 3-piece. I just think it was the time, the place. I think Paul Westerberg also, just listen to IOU, listen to those lyrics and stuff. The pressure that he felt, the people who were, what will they be without Bob? Like, what's this band up to now? Like, do they have anything left in them and stuff? And I think it pushed them. I really think it did. And what we ended up getting was the best Replacements record, in my opinion. And all the other ones are great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, Bob Stinson, one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Same as Slim Dunlap. I love the last 2 Replacements records. But, them as a 3-piece was just, that's why it's really, I really just wish Chris Mars would get back behind those drums and the three of them would fucking play again together. Because, like, yeah, you would love to see them play with Slim, which obviously, he's had more health troubles lately. So, I mean, thoughts and prayers and all that out to him. Speedy recovery. Hopefully he's doing better. I wish health-wise the man could catch a break. But, I mean, he always seems to be in good spirits and whatnot. And just such a legend, and it's it's sad to see, but it's also awesome to see everyone supporting him. Like, still, I know it's been kind of an ongoing thing since like 2013, but people still support him. I loved it. Like the first time I went to Minneapolis in 2016, I remember going to Treehouse Records across the street from CC Club, and it used to be Or Folk Joke Opus was the record store before it was called Treehouse Records. And that was the one that Peter Jesperson worked at, that if you've read Trouble Boys or you just know the fucking history of the Replacements, that's where Paul Westerberg brought the first Replacements demo to Peter Jesperson, and that's where Peter Jesperson heard them, and then, ended up signing them to Twin Tone, and the rest is history. But, to go in there and to know that and whatnot. But I remember going to the cash register, and they had a little donation box there for Slim, and a couple other record stores I went to in town then had those. And, even throughout the years, I think I might have seen one or two when I was living there last year as well. I can't remember. Maybe I'm remembering from the first time. And I remember definitely I threw some money in there for sure. That's one I don't have to think twice about donating to. But, like I'm saying, I mean, just such a sweet guy, such a good guy. You never heard a bad thing said about him. And it's great to see that people are still supporting him now. And they are still putting music up on his Bandcamp page. That's the other thing. Go check that out. Go give your money, because that is going to a good cause. That is going to a working musician who, cannot afford what healthcare costs and what this is costing him. He's not fucking rich. Like, he didn't become a millionaire off playing off the last two Replacements records. Like, I wish he was. I wish everyone who was part of the Replacements were filthy fucking rich. I wish they had REM money. I really do. But, we all know that they don't. And, if you can go support them, Slim Dunlap, go check out his Bandcamp page. That's being set up from his family and stuff. I believe his daughter's doing a lot of it. And I know Chrissy, his wife, works on the stuff. And they're putting up unreleased things, old live stuff from the Turf Club and whatnot. And, money's going to go to them. So, go support that. That's on Bandcamp. And every now and then, I know they recently redid the Slim necklaces that they did, the 45 adapter with a little heart in the middle. And they do little things like that from time to time. And once again, those proceeds help them. So, yeah, if you can help out with that stuff, go check it out. And, you get great music, too. So good. But anyway, this is positive stuff. Let me get back to being an angry prick for a second, though. Actually, I'm not an angry prick. I'm just mad at Rhino because and I heard this last year with Dead Man's Pop, and I was sitting pretty. I was living, imagine if you will, I was living in Minneapolis, 5-minute walk from Electric Fetus, one of the greatest record stores in the country. And I just get my Dead Man's Pop down there, and I got the promos with it. I walked down one day, I pre-ordered it. See, that's also like side. That's this whole episode. It's just me solo. I'm bullshitting with you, talking about music, and one of the coolest things, because I've also talked about on this show how I've always had to like travel to shows and do this and that. But when I was living in Minneapolis, one of the coolest fucking things, like I don't know, maybe the only people who would appreciate this would be someone listening to this, but like, a moment of like, this is just where I should live, or this is where I should be, was when I could walk 5 minutes from my apartment and go take a picture with Bob Mould when he was doing a signing and a performance there. Like the whole time in my head, because I'm thinking like, I've went to these for years. Like, it's not like my first time going to this. Like, I'm a 26-year-old. Like, it's not the first time I've been to a meet and greet or whatever. But like the idea that I didn't have to drive, that I went to work, came home, like ate dinner and shit, and like just walked down casually. I just like at like 5:30, I just kind of walked down the street to go see Bob Mould and take a picture, and then just casually walk home after. That fucking ruled. But anyways, I remember around this time last year, walking down, getting my Dead Man's Pop, and I remember a lot of people online bitching about Rhino not sending it on time, a bunch of delays, just this and that. Not great stuff. And Rhino's the one who releases these. I mean, as far as packaging goes and like the promos they give, I've said it on here before, they've done amazing things with the Replacement stuff they do. Like the last 5 years, they've been doing a lot with the vinyl. They've been doing it for years. Like any of those remasters and the reissues on CDs that they did, like at this point, probably like, I think maybe like 15 years ago. That was my intro to them, actually. Pleased to Meet Me was my first Replacements album. Maybe that's why it's my favorite. And it was that expanded edition. And actually, I take that back. I think 2008 those got released. So, yeah, I think I got mine 09 or maybe end of 0. You know what? Maybe those even just came out when I got it. But Rhino did those reissues, and they've been doing, I mean, anything Replacements related that's been released in the 21st century has all basically been Rhino. And I think they do really well. Like the vinyl box sets, the Twin Tone years, and then the Sire years, they did a great job on those. They did a great job on promos for them. Like really, like, I mean, out of the park. Like really cool shit. Like you got really cool like promo items that I still see pop up. And one I still really need is a Replacements mat. The Mat's mat. That for the For Sale live at Maxwell's. I still really need that. A record store that I worked at for about a month had one. And I kind of wish I would have like shoved that motherfucker down my pants or something and walked out with it, I guess. But I couldn't do that. But it would probably be worth it for a Mat's mat. And yeah, like that's still to me like one of the like promo items I would love to have. I'm not a big collector, but when it comes to like Replacement stuff, I gotta have like anything that they've ever released, and that's one of them. But yeah, I saw last year. Anyways, getting back to it, saw last year a bunch of people bitch about Dead Man's Pop not getting it on time, delay after delay. And I didn't listen. I ordered the Pleased to Meet Me straight through Rhino. You would think going right to the fucking source would be the easiest. You would think you would get it right away. But it has been out now for, I think, 2 weeks, and I still have not gotten it. And I don't know when the hell I'm getting it. I know I got an email that said it got delayed for some shitty reason. But it's like after, like, you start seeing people all the time with these, with like Rhino, and it's like, all right, this isn't a one-time thing. Like, you're just lying and you're fucking up every time. And it's just like, come on. Like, seriously, you know? Like, it's just so annoying, you know? When I think about it, because I really am waiting. Like, I'm so excited. I want to hear... and that's the other thing, too, is it doesn't help when I see all these people go, oh, it's a great box set. There's all these unreleased songs no one's ever heard. Apparently, there's quite a few... maybe not even quite a few, but like a handful of songs that Tommy Stinson sang on that have never seen the light of day before. And same with like some of Bob Stinson's final performances with the band, like things like that on there that you've never heard before. And I'm just waiting. I'm impatiently waiting, and you know, I fucking hope it gets here soon because I'm excited, and I want all those goodies too because they still did some cool extras with it. I got everything. I went all out with it. I have to. It is like and I've said it on here. Like in my younger days, I was always about that. You know, I'd like the deluxe edition of things. I was a collector. You know, I want the deluxe edition of the album. I want it on the, you know, super rare vinyl pressing. I want this and that. And I just have kind of lost that as I've gotten older. Like I just kind of want the album. You know what I mean? Like I'm not as nuts about that anymore. There was a time where like if I wanted an album, I would go check out and be like, okay, are there any like cool imports with a bunch of B-sides, or is there like a deluxe edition? I would always want that. Whereas now I'm like, unless I really like the band, I just think I realize most of that's from a collector's standpoint. How many times do you really listen to demos and outtakes like that? Unless it's a band you really love. The Replacements are one of those. Like, I love their B-sides. I love their outtakes. Like, I listen to them all the time. Like, they're like, Don't Tell a Soul has some of their best B-sides. Like Portland, We Know the Night, Date to Church. Like, there's all these great fucking songs. You know, so there are bands. Alkaline Trio is another one. Alkaline Trio, if you give me outtakes and B-sides from them, I'm always going to listen to that. Remains is one of their best albums, and it's all B-sides and outtakes. Like, it's some of their best shit. So, you know, some bands I will, but like just a band in general now, I'm not as, you know, like anal about that. But the Replacements I am. And, you know, I've been impatiently waiting because this is a band that I do want to hear everything. Like, this is... Like I said, there's a lot of people who, you know, I don't need to hear your like home demos and your basement recordings. But if Paul Westerberg finally let us hear the thousands and thousands of hours worth of material that he's just recorded in his basement that has never seen the light of day, and who knows if it ever will, I mean, I would eat that shit up 100%. Like probably lo-fi. Not all of it's probably amazing. The quality's probably not always great. You know, I mean, if you've heard, like, go listen to the I Don't Cares. Like, I love that record, but it's like, he goes for lo-fi now. He wants it to sound like it was recorded in a bit, which, I mean, to be honest, it was. So he's being honest. You know what I mean? Like the recording is truthful. It was recorded in a basement, but I think he's going for that sound, and he has been for really a couple decades now. And I mean, I'm not against it, but yeah, like I still want to hear that stuff. Doesn't matter if it's not well produced or not. He's one of those, and I do wonder if we'll ever hear it, because it's like I think if we do, to be honest, he'll probably be dead. Like, it's more of a question of that. I think while he's alive, we're not going to hear most of it. He's just not going to release it. When he's dead, it's another question, I mean, and Paul Westerberg is God, so more than likely he never will die. He probably will just outlive all of us. But, if he dies, and I don't want to live in a world without Paul Westerberg, but, God forbid the day he does, I don't know. Will they pull a Prince? And then, see, that's the other thing. Then I'm conflicted, because you have, Prince is one of those. Like, I love Prince, but there is this really conflicting thing after he died, because, like, when Prince was alive, like, he made it very obvious. Like, he was very choosy with how his music was handled, how it was distributed, where it was, like he didn't love, he didn't like digital distribution. He didn't like actually, I don't think most of his music was on digital outlets and Spotify and shit like that until after he died. Like, Prince, and I respect that. Like, Prince was just, kind of like Paul Westerberg is, very, reserved with his music. He protected it. It was his baby. He cared about it. And, I mean, after he passed away, I think some of it got a little more lenient, and look I've been to Paisley Park. I did the little tour, and it was cool, but it still felt weird, because I also know that 2 years prior to that, I remember driving by Paisley Park that first time I went to Minneapolis in 2016, and it was like literally like 2 months before he died. Like, at most, it was 2 months. I went there in March of 2016. He died, I think, April or May of 2016. And I mean, I'm there. I got to drive by Paisley Park, so I drive by. But this is when he's still alive. Like, you're not allowed there. It's in a place where you're really not gonna be able to get out and like take pictures and shit. It's very nondescript. It's like a suburb of the Twin Cities. There's not a lot around there. It's very. I do always wonder, actually, because when I drove by, I do remember it was like a big old SUV was driving out of there. And I always wonder that, like, was that Prince? Probably Prince in there. But, I just think of that, and like, that was his place. I mean, yes, he had people in. He would do really cool fucking parties and different like performances and shit in there. Like, he did cool things. But once again, he was reserved about it. He was very, like, he would have those parties and stuff there, but you could have no phones, no recordings. Like, that's just how he was, I mean, once again, Paul Westerberg hasn't become, Paul Westerberg's kind of become that in his older age. He's kind of went the Prince route in a lot of ways. But, after he died, you see a lot of that stuff more open. And even going in there, I felt kind of weird, because I'm like, would Prince want us in here is the question. Like, would Prince really want this as a museum afterwards? Like, there's some people who would probably be like, yes, like, they wouldn't mind that their home became, a museum, or like their legacy was preserved. I mean, I think he wants his legacy preserved, but in a way different than it is, which that's just something I noticed with him, after he passed. There's just a lot of things that have went on where I go, yeah, I don't know that Prince would be into that. I don't think Prince would like the way that his estate has been handled afterwards. I don't know, my own opinion, but I don't think that's too far-fetched. I've talked to a couple other people who kind of share that. I think most people who are fans of Prince would probably agree with that, the way his estate's been handled. But, goddamn, so much good music in Minnesota. Look at it. It always goes back to Minnesota. If we're not talking about New Jersey pop punk, we're talking about Minnesota. Just all the good music from there. But, yeah, I've been waiting for this box set. I want it really bad. I love Pleased to Meet Me. I want my T-shirt. I want my tote bag that I'm never going to use. The cassette's kind of cool. There is a cassette with a interview on there, and I don't have it. I have seen it. No, I've seen it around. It has circulated throughout the years. I don't know if it's an official or in a bootleg, but originally on a 45, I think. But this one's on a cassette. And a couple other things in there. I got the deluxe package that Rhino had on there with all the shit in it. So I got all the shit supposed to come with, and that would be fine and dandy if it was actually here. But it's still not here, and I'm still so pissed at that, because it's the only label I think that's ever happened. Most of the time, if you order something directly from a label, you'll get it like a few days before the album's released. I've gotten that tons of times where you order like the vinyl and it gets there like 3 days before the album's ever released. And then you have like the digital download and you can download a couple days early. Like normally it goes that way. Like very rarely does it go the other way where you just don't get it. And like, yes, I would look at COVID's happening. Like I get that things are slowing down. Like I sell a good amount of shit on eBay. I do e-commerce and whatnot. Like I get it. Like I've sent things out. Actually, even things for the show. I've sent T-shirts out to people and stickers and stuff that I've gotten them sent back to me or never get to them. You know, I've a couple shirts. I remember a buddy in Chicago is like, "Hey, did you ever send that shirt?" And I look up the tracking and it just like there was tracking and then just one day it just stopped. It just like, yeah, it's in hell now. Like I don't know what to tell you. So like I get that, but the thing is you hear from people and they're like, "No, Rhino does this constantly." Like pandemic or not, Rhino fucking drops the ball on these. So I'm sitting here kind of bummed about that. I did get two. I'm not throwing them under the bus or anything here. Like, I'm not gonna say their name and like shit on them that way. But funny enough, I did also and finally receive, not order. I ordered these things in like July, but really cool replacements posters someone did of their Saturday Night Live performance, and I just finally got that in the mail maybe a week ago. I was kind of bummed though because when I ordered it, they were doing this cool package where you got that and then you got a free Bash and Pop poster that they did a few years ago from one of their tours, and it's really cool. It's actually one that I wanted since they did it. I always thought it was cool and just never ordered it because I don't really put them up. Like it's one of those ones where you buy and you frame it, and framing's so expensive and stuff that like unless I really have a place I want it, I'll just keep it in a poster tube until I'm ready. So I was like, I never really ordered it, and then they had that special, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to do it. And then, yeah, it took months to get, and then I ended up never getting that. They were nice enough. They sent 2 color variants of the replacements poster, and I mean, it looks really cool. But yeah, there's something about replacement shit apparently. You order it, and it just never gets there. I don't know why. You know, but yeah, you know, if you're a replacements fan, definitely go. I haven't even heard it yet, but all I've heard is glowing reviews on the deluxe edition of Pleased to Meet Me. So, I mean, I'd go grab it. Just don't grab it from Rhino. That's all I'm saying. Buy it. Just don't buy it from Rhino. Buy it anywhere but there, you know. But, yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. I've been waiting for that. I tried to enjoy the, last few good days of weather here. Not even try. I did enjoy them. And, as far as music I've been listening to lately, a lot of old stuff. But I got to say, after me and Kyle's interview for Insomniac 2 weeks ago now, I've been listening to a shit ton of Green Day and a lot of specifically Insomniac and Nimrod. I mean, which if you listen to it, I already said it in there where it's like Kyle was like getting me. It's like, all right, I'm into this. Like I think Insomniac is good, but like since that, I've been listening even more, and 100%, it's my favorite Green Day record now. It's my favorite one. It's like I put on Dookie the one day. And I'll be completely honest. And look the Dookie's still a classic. This isn't like I'm saying fuck Dookie, but I put Dookie on and I got a few songs in and I turned it off and I put Insomniac on instead. True story, I swear. I'm listening to it and I'm just like, I got to listen to Insomniac. Because one of the things that we touched on, and I won't stay on this, there's 4 hours of audio of us talking about it, so I won't stay on this long. But, like we talked about, just the production on it's so good that I was listening to Dookie and I'm like, Insomniac just sounds better. It's the same vibe. It has a lot of that, but it's darker and it sounds better. And I've just been listening to that album a shit ton. And it very cool. That was celebrating its 25th anniversary the week we released that podcast. And they have since released a 25th anniversary edition of the record on vinyl. And they put up, I believe it was unseen before. I don't think they ever released it, but like a 30-minute documentary from the Insomniac tour. They were touring. I forget where. It was another country. I think they were playing somewhere in Europe, maybe. But really cool. There's like some behind the scenes footage. They interviewed the band a little. You know, I mean, it's 25 years old too. I mean, they're just so young, and it's really cool too because they play a couple songs on there that you'd never hear them play. Like me and Kyle were talking about how they never play 86. They play 86 on here. And there's a couple other songs off Insomniac that you don't really hear them play that they play on this, that they just put on YouTube. Go find on Green Day's YouTube. And also very cool. I'm tempted to maybe even buy one, but they put up a bunch of Insomniac era merch repressed shirts, reprinted shirts on their site, which, I mean, vintage, they go on eBay for a lot of money. So, if you've ever wanted one of those and you don't mind it not being the original, but not a bootleg either, it's still Green Day. They just put up like 4 or 5 designs and like a hoodie and just a bunch of cool stuff. There's a really cool like ringer tee from an Insomniac tour that I really liked. I kind of want that. But a couple cool Insomniac things they put up. You should go check out if you're a fan of that. I love talking to him. Just two buddies bullshitting about a record for 4 hours. If you haven't heard that yet, go check out that episode. I always have fun with him. It's the third time he's been on the show. Definitely won't be the last time. And we always just go so long because it's just two buddies. Like I said, it's just two buddies talking. And which I have Kyle to thank for that. I told him to pick the Green Day album. He picked Insomniac. It's not like I made him, because I didn't make him choose that. Like, obviously we did it. It really just coincided with the anniversary. So that was the other thing. Like, he wanted to do that one because he loves that record. And he's like, oh yeah, it'd be kind of cool because it's around the anniversary. But it's like, I wasn't like, hey man, we got to do this episode because the album is turning 25. He could have picked any of them. He could have, he was thinking about Dookie and Nimrod as well. So, it easily could have been one of those. But I'm really happy when Insomniac, because he's like, I'm listening to tons of Green Day again now, and listening to that album just tons, and tons of Nimrod, and a little bit of old school Blink-182 too as well. I've listened to Dude Ranch a couple times lately. That's another one that I go back to. Like, was not my first Blink-182 record, but listening to them now, I really probably became a fan like 12 or 13, like 13, I'd say, was when I really got into them. And I'm 27 now, and this far in, I go back to really Dude Ranch. I listen to the most, and probably behind that would be Enema of the State. And I'll listen to Cheshire Cat. I know a lot of people don't like, and I didn't really realize this for a long time. I thought everyone really liked that album, but I know there's a lot of people who they're not into that side of them, which, look at, like, they're not the most amazing songs ever written. I realize that. I'm not listening to it going, wow, Benoit Balls is the most profound song I've ever heard. Like, I realize what I'm listening to, but I think it's the spirit of it. And I won't lie, I'm sure it's still nostalgia too. I'm sure it's from me, getting that album in, the summer between 7th grade and 8th grade. Like, you kind of get that nostalgia and stuff with it too. But, I'll definitely go back to that and listen to that a lot as well. And, I love everything from Tom era, but, like these days I find myself listening a lot more to Dude Ranch than any of their other records. And with Green Day right now, lots of Insomniac and lots of Nimrod. Still listening to tons of X. I've said it on here a couple times now since that Decline episode, but just listening to tons of X still. A band that I said, like, I casually knew a handful of songs from for years, that now I'm going back and, they've been a band longer than I've been alive, and there's just so much to go back through that it's like, I'm so stoked. Like, I keep hearing, like, at first I really liked Los Angeles. Now I'm listening, I'm like, oh my God, like, Wild Gift is fucking nuts. Like, now I'm really loving that. Alphabet Land, their new record, I'm not even lying, like, some of their best stuff is on their newest record. Like, 40 years in, like, some of my favorite songs are on that album. And so that's another one I'm still listening to tons of. And Funkadelic lately too, Maggot Brain, which I'm fairly new to. Really, this year I started. I've always known Funkadelic and Parliament, like I know George Clinton and all that, but was never really. George Clinton is kind of like, see, this is the thing. It takes me getting older. I realize I'm maturing in some of my musical taste, because George Clinton was like Tom Waits to me for years, where I was like, this shit's too weird. I can't get into it. Like, I'm not, and I love Tom Waits now, but like Tom Waits up until age like 22, I couldn't get into it. I'm like, this is too, it's funny. I'm recording this in the WRFA studios, and I knew who Tom Waits was, but I remember when I first started, when I was interning here in high school in like 2009, 2010, we had Swordfish trombones, and I had to rip it into the system. I was putting in, like, we'd get CD, and obviously that one wasn't new then, but we didn't have it in the system yet. So one of the guys here was like, hey, we got to have this, some of these classic albums. And actually, it's funny enough, Parliament was in there as well too. Oh man, Mothership Connection, I think it was. And another one where I listened to one or two songs when I put it in the system, and I'm just like, I just don't get it. Same with Swordfish trombones. I'm like, it's whatever. I don't fucking get it. And then as I've gotten older, I Tom Waits now. I absolutely love Tom Waits. I like the older stuff though. Like Swordfish trombone stuff is okay, but like I'm more of the closing time, just that beat stuff, the stuff that sounds like it's Bukowski set to music, the whole 70s, early 80s era, and like Heart Attack and Vine, all that stuff I love the most. But I mean, he's still doing good shit. Mule Variations, all those records are still really good too. But I mean, I love him now. But like, same with George Clinton. There's just so much stuff that now I'm like, oh, I guess I get it. Like, and another one, Frank Zappa, I still don't. I got to be honest. Like him, Captain Beefheart. There's ones like that I still are just too out there for me. Where I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't get the appeal. Like I just don't. But I feel like every year in my 20s, there's been a band or an artist that like I never understood that I just do. A couple years ago, Bruce Springsteen, like the Stroke. I remember like maybe like age 24, like age 23, I think I got into Bob Dylan. I'm like, okay, Bob Dylan doesn't suck anymore. Age 24, I'm like, all right, Bruce Springsteen doesn't suck anymore. Age 25, oh man, what was age 25? Oh, the Strokes. I just said that. Yeah, the Strokes. Like really, like all these artists or bands where I was just like, I didn't really care before, or I didn't really like them at all. Like there was definitely a time where I did not like Bruce Springsteen at all. And I mean, there's still like I don't love everything he's ever done, but I like most his records. I think Nebraska's a masterpiece. That's still my favorite. Bruce Springsteen as a sad motherfucker is the best Bruce Springsteen. Like him depressed with just him and a guitar is the best version of him. Like by far. Like and that it's funny because I now realize, like I always thought I was a minority of liking Nebraska, not liking Nebraska, but like thinking it's his best stuff. And then I realized Nebraska's kind of the album that everyone who doesn't like Springsteen likes. And even though I do like Springsteen now, that's still my favorite record from him. That's still his best when he's just a sad motherfucker like that. I like emo Bruce Springsteen basically. But yeah, like that's still my favorite stuff. But I now like him. And I guess for age 27, probably George Clinton. He, just the shit. And not, I mean, that's his band, but, even more specifically, I mean, Eddie Hazel's guitar, we're talking Maggot Brain. I mean, that's the album itself. You got to go listen to Funkadelic's Maggot Brain. That whole record is just goddamn good, front to back. And just a trip to listen to. So fun. You don't get bored of it at all. You do not get bored of it. Like, and that's the thing is like me not getting like years ago, not getting Parliament or any of that or Funkadelic. Now going back, now the things I didn't get before, now I'm like, oh fuck, this is fun. Like this is really good. But just that solo in Maggot Brain and to keep your attention. I don't like 10-minute songs. I don't listen to many of them. Maggot Brain is one of the few things I'll listen to that's 10 minutes long and not get bored of. It's just the way he plays that guitar. Eddie Hazel, talk about underrated guitarist. I mean that guy that song is a testament to his guitar playing. I mean there's tons of others, but that is that's the one. You know what I mean? Like that's the one. His legacy is Maggot Brain, and not a bad legacy at all. I mean, if you've not heard that song, if you've not heard that album, go listen to it. I mean, it's a 10-minute masterpiece, and it's so cool too. I recently learned that they've been playing that Saturday nights in Cleveland for, I mean, basically since the song came out. I mean, like 40 years now. It has been on a couple different stations. Now it's on 98.5. But if you ever find yourself, or you're listening to this in Cleveland, if you find yourself in Cleveland on Saturday nights, it's such a long song. I think they play it like at 11:50 on Saturday night into Sunday morning. And that's just so badass. I've never gotten to hear it myself, but I'm so tempted to just drive to fucking Cleveland one Saturday night just to listen to Maggot Brain on my radio. Like, because just shit like that, probably because I do radio, like I get a kick out of that. But there'd just be something about it. You're just driving through downtown Cleveland, listening to Maggot Brain as Saturday turns into Sunday. There's just something beautiful about that. So, yeah. So that's been what I've been listening to. Lots of X, lots of Funkadelic, and lots of Green Day. And, there's been some good music, though, this month, but I'm going to hold that because next week, I mean, we're already at the end of October, so I'll be doing the October rundown. I'll be talking about all the new music next week, but I'm looking here, too. I mean, we're an hour in, so, I mean, I feel like this is probably a good place to cut on out here, but I've had a ton of fun talking on here. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, was going to have Steve Neurotic on. I fucked that up. That was totally my bad, but I would not be surprised. Maybe he's even the guest in the next week or so. And I don't know, maybe if we do it soon enough, I could always throw up our interview and an October rundown next week. So I don't know, maybe we'll even have 2 episodes next week for you. But either way, you got one this week. Didn't want to leave you hanging for a second week in a row. But yeah, if you want to follow us online, stay connected with the show at Power Chord Hour on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. And I put up playlists every week. The songs that I play on the radio show, as well as a bunch of other playlists. So go find us on Spotify. I did just recently put up a Power Chord crash course talking about X, or speaking of X. I just put one up there of 17 songs spanning their career. And it's supposed to be, it's somewhat a greatest hits. And it's also like, if you're not familiar with this band, here's the songs I think you should listen to get into them. And, and I try not to do those Power Chord crash course. Like, I don't want to make it just a straight up greatest hits. Like, I left a few songs off there, actually. Like, Nausea's not on there. Los Angeles isn't on there. And probably a couple others that would be like, quote unquote, X classics. And I just kind of took them off because I'm like, eventually, if you just put 17 of their hit songs, all I did was make a playlist that is X greatest hits, which already exists, like probably in 7 different variations. There's probably 7 greatest hits records out there for them. So I try to do it where it's like, okay, here's some of the singles, but here's also just some great album tracks. And, if you're not familiar with the band, or you are, and you just want a playlist full of X, go check out the Power Chord Crash Course playlist for X up there. And, I'm just getting into them. And these are the songs that, for me, the last few months, I've been like, how did I never hear these before? So that is up there. Check out on our Spotify. And if you want to rate and review, the podcast is all over the place. Now available in India. Once again, shout out to you. If you're listening to this in India, you are fucking awesome. Our listens, including, like I said, like on older episodes, have gone up the last couple weeks, all from India. Like, shout out to you. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really hope you enjoy it, but drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. And, and some repeats to it, like shows. And it's like, there are people like with multiple downloads from places. So obviously we're getting repeat people, because that's the thing that scares you. It's like, is everyone in India just listening to my podcast once going, what is this bullshit? And they all turn it off. Like, I'm happy there's all these downloads. And it's like, oh, well, everyone in India turned it off like 30 seconds in. They're like, we're not listening to this garbage. Thankfully, it doesn't look like that. There's people actually checking out multiple episodes and whatnot. Thank you so much for checking it out. Drop me a line, powerchordhour@gmail.com. Like I said, I'd love to send you some guitar picks. And that's if you're anywhere. Once again, like, I'd love to just hear from you wherever you are. People do it from time to time, and I really do. Like, I love that. If you're just like, hey, enjoyed the episode, like, I love hearing from people. So hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. And if you want to rate and review us, send me a screenshot of that rate and review, and I'll send you a Power Chord Hour t-shirt, absolutely free. I should probably get some more stickers made. Like I said, I've been people hitting me up for them, so we'll probably eventually get some made again sometime very soon. But until then, we do not have them, but whatever. Hit me up for the other free shit. And I'll be back next week. Not sure with who, but we'll at least have October rundown. You gotta actually, this week, as I say this, and as I say actually 4 times in a row, no, it is not this week. I was about to tell you to check out the Halloween episode of the Power Chord Hour radio show, but that is going to be next week. You can still check out the radio show this Friday night and every Friday night. We do it 10 Eastern to midnight right here on 107.9 WRFA in Jamestown, New York. If you do not live here, you can stream the station, WRFALP.com. Like I said, we got people listening to the Swedish Hour in Sweden. You can listen to the radio station from anywhere in the world. And I spend 2 hours of music on there. Like, this is where I talk about the music, but if you want to hear me really like a soundtrack to what I'm playing on here and talk about it more, not just a Spotify playlist, not just some soulless shit, you want to hear me talk about it and, all that stuff. The radio show, you got to check it out. I would love if you did. That is the original love here. That is our first love, was the radio show, doing that. And I love doing the podcast now as well. But I do love spinning punk rock and alternative for you on your Friday nights. And still Fiend Club Friday block of music. I'm playing a block of Misfits for every week in October. And we do 3 Misfits. We do 4 Misfits songs, 3 originals, and 1 is a cover. Like last week, I did No Use for a Name's cover of Hybrid Moments. I don't know who I'm going to do a cover of this week, but I'll do different ones like that. And then the Halloween episode, which won't be this week, it'll be next week. I just play a shit ton of Misfits, as well as like AFI, Misfits, definitely some Alkaline Trio in there. I mean, all the punk bands you can think of that you associate with like October and Halloween get played on that Halloween episode. And I'm going to have to up the ante. This is our first year with 2 hours. And I mean, I've been playing so many Misfit songs too before that, like, there's a couple that I'll probably repeat. Like, I don't want to replay everything that I've been playing during the Fiend Club Fridays, but it's like you got to play Where Eagles Dare and We Are 138 and like a couple ones I've already played. I'm like, you got to play those on the Halloween episode. But I'm definitely going to try not to repeat myself on the Halloween one. Try to play a bunch of ones that we didn't get to the rest of the month. But, if you're listening as well, email me your requests. If there's any Misfit songs you want to hear on there, just songs in general. You want to request a song, hit me up. But that's going to be the episode for this week. Check back next week for another one. Check out the radio show this Friday night. And until then, for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thanks for listening.